Good morning. My name is John Levin, principal. Welcome to the Clinton School webinar. I must be honest, I've never done a webinar before, so this may be a little bit of a learning opportunity for me. So the webinar is scheduled for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to walk you through a few slides. We have an updated video that I'm going to attempt to show, and then I did have an opportunity to review the questions that people had submitted beforehand. So at the end, I'm going to respond to some of those questions. As I mentioned before we started, we are recording this, and then by the end of the week, early next week, it will be posted to our website, so you can review that as well. So again, welcome to the Clinton School, and hopefully we will start with a short video. Welcome to the Clinton School. We are 6 through 12. We have been thinking a lot about how we support students over that course of 7 years. So not every student stays for middle school and the upper grades program, but really having that ability to support students and think critically about how we support students over a 7-year span when they're coming in as 11-year-olds and leaving as 18-year-olds is something that feels really special in a New York City public school.
So here at Clinton, something that we're really focusing on in terms of culture is becoming a community around circles. So circles are coming together as a group and have an opportunity to share your thoughts, share your feelings, share different ways that we can meet your needs better and help create the culture where we want to be a home for diverse learners. So that's something that we're gearing toward, and that's the culture that we want to create here at Clinton moving forward.
Over that time, we've been able to hire and attract staff that have two main attributes. They're kind and they're confident. So not everybody wants to work with teenagers, but I think that we've had a lot of success in attracting a staff and building a culture where people do, and that's something that's been super important to our growth.
So one of my favorite things about working at Clinton is that we are a small community. So when students walk in the morning, they're saying good morning to the security guards, they're saying good morning to the cafeteria workers, to the teachers, to the counselors, to the principal. Everyone who's here, we really get to know and support each child. Something that's really important for us is to know that everyone is an individual and we are going to provide whatever the individuals are looking for. That we know middle school can be messy. We do not expect perfection. We're here to intervene in a really supportive way that is developmentally appropriate.
So I'm one of the 2 high school counselors, and we have a very holistic approach to counseling in our department. We work with students on academic, social, emotional, career and college, but we really want to get to know them. So we divide the grade in 2. Myself and my partner, we work with each half of the alphabet, and we get to know students from 9th to 12th grade, so we can advise them best in not only where they'll go to college, but also like where they will be happy in life and what their ambitions are after high school. We also get involved in the culture of our school. I am the advisor to the student council and the peer leadership program. Tim is the coach of the cross country team. So we know that we want to get involved in the student life to get to know kids on another level. Not only we don't see them in the classroom, but we don't always want to see them in our office. We want to get to know them.
Thinking a little bit just about this beautiful building and our location. So we're a 8-story building located off between 5th Avenue and Union Square, full of modern Wi-Fi technology. There's tremendous parent support and involvement. We even have working elevators and lockers, which are rare for a public school in New York City.
All right, so yeah, Clinton Athletics, a lot going on. Manhattan Youth runs our middle school program, so a lot of opportunities there. They run the fall, winter, and spring. We have cross country, basketball, volleyball, flag football, soccer, and then PSAL is a huge part of our high school program where we also have boys and girls soccer, table tennis, basketball for boys and girls, cross country for girls, and we're looking to add a lot more sports in the near future. And then we also are adding a fitness facility upstairs on the 8th floor, which we're hoping to roll all the high school students in and then eventually get the middle school students in. So yeah, a lot of things happening here. Super excited.
Student life involves clubs, traditions, trips, community service projects, internships, and other extracurricular activities. My goal is to provide a safe, fun, creative, supportive environment for our community. Middle school has 14 clubs that meet during lunch, and other extracurricular activities are provided by Manhattan Youth, where they meet after school. High school has 71 clubs, and they all range from artistic, academic, affinity groups, science-related, and hobby-related. And if you like more information about Student Life, you can contact me at areyes@theclinton.net.
We're an international baccalaureate world school, and so we offer the IB program to all 11th and 12th graders. So there's no application process. We don't track in any way. Students who come in complete the Regents by the end of 10th, and then they move on to IB courses in 11th and 12th.
Why the IB? So we went with the IB program because it requires deep analytical thinking across all of the disciplines, as well as writing. And so it's important for students to build that skill so that when they enter into college, they are able to tackle the challenging work that's presented to them and make it through their entire educational experience. We also felt the IB prepared students to be global citizens in that it engages students in the IB profile traits, which includes being open-minded, being inquirers, and thinking about how they can engage in the world and learn for themselves.
So not every single student is going to go for an IB diploma. It's a New York public school, so every student will graduate with a Regents diploma. But I think having a model that really supports a range of learners in the IB is something that's been super beneficial to students across the spectrum at Clinton, really reflecting the diversity of New York City. Welcome to the Clinton School. We are a
Great. So you had on that video, hopefully an opportunity to see the school in action a little bit. You know, it's an updated video because sadly, we're all still wearing masks, social distancing, and so on and so forth. But I know I did want to give you at least an opportunity for to get a feel of the school now. So you heard a few times in the video from me, John Levin, principal. As the slide says, is my 11th year as school leader, my 20th year in District 2 schools. You heard from Cheryl Gett, who works primarily with the 11th and 12th grade, but she does cut across science and special education as the assistant principal. This is her 12th year at Clinton as school leader. And then you also heard from Jerome Ellison, who's a new assistant principal at Clinton. Although he's new to Clinton, he's not new to public school. He worked for 10 years at a K-8 public school in Brooklyn Heights as a math teacher, coach, and dean, and we're super happy to have him here. On the video itself, you heard a lot, not a lot, but a few different times about high school or the IB, and we are 1/6 through 12. So I think that's a piece to keep in mind as you think about listing Clinton on the application. I don't think it's better or worse than a standalone middle school, but it is something important to keep in mind that we're constantly thinking about the 7-year range of students and how we support students on 7 years. So everybody is not going to stay for all 7 years, but that's a big influence just in terms of how we think about supporting students and running the school. The mission statement, what we're about, again, we provide a 7-year liberal arts program that engages students in authentic learning. You see a lot of project-based learning. You see a lot of collaboration at Clinton. As a public school, we provide equity of opportunity by offering the IB diploma to all students. So as I mentioned in the video, all students are engaged in the IB diploma in 11th and 12th. And if you only have a 5th grader, you don't have any older students, and you're like, holy mackerel, this is a little much. I just want to know about middle school. We will get there, but I just want to let you know that that's something on our mind. And I will talk a little bit about how the IB diploma and being an IB World School has influenced some of the earlier and younger grades as well. We're a close-knit and collaborative community of families and educators that model reflective learning and support students in the challenges they encounter in and out of school. Being an adolescent, being in middle school, being in high school is a challenging time for students, and we certainly social emotionally as they figure out who they are, as they work through their identity, as they figure out what they want to study and what they want to be in life. All of those things are particularly challenging. The IB challenges them in every course. We built a really strong academic program that also challenges them at Clinton. So by design, this program is going to stretch and challenge students. And I feel like our role as a school is one, to provide those challenges, And then 2, think comprehensively about what support looks like. And that's on a social emotional level, that's on an academic level, and that's by partnering with families at home. So Clinton, we are in a new building, although now we've been here a number of years, maybe 8 or 9 years. But we were the first District 2 magnet middle school. The building on the left is PS 11. We were there for a number of years. And then for 5 years, we were at we were on 33rd Street as the Clinton School for Writers and Artists. And then when we moved to 15th Street, we had the opportunity to begin to expand. So we moved in with 9th grade, and we also formally changed our name from the Clinton School for Writers and Artists to the Clinton School. And the main reason for that is not because we no longer valued writers or artists, but because we really moved away from being a theme middle school to being an IB school and focusing on supporting students. And especially as students thought about high school and college in the application process, we didn't want them to be pigeonholed in a particular area. Our STEM program and math program is particularly strong. And so we felt like the Clinton School better reflected that strength. Again, we're at our permanent home, 6 through 12, about 800 students, about 60 teachers, and we are the Clinton Hawks. So just the middle school, we have 3 sections on each grade. So 3 6th grade classes, 3 7, 3 8. That's about 295 students on a good day. We have 23 teachers. As I mentioned, we're 1 6 through 12 school. You have 1 principal. We do share staff and share faculty. And then just with the middle school, you had the opportunity to hear from one of the counselors. There are 2 full-time counselors, Allison Holtman and Seth Nagel, and then there's 1 full-time social worker, Veronica Perez. In the upper grades, we have 2 additional counselors, one of whom you heard from on the video. That was Tracy Shafson, and another Tim David Lang, who's an experienced college counselor. The facilities themselves, so as I mentioned, we are in a high-rise. We're the only school in this building. The library is on the ground floor, and you saw a little bit of in that video. The cafeteria is on the 2nd floor. Middle school has lunch, and then upper grades have lunch. Upper grades are generally on floors 3 to 5, and then middle school is up on 6 and 7. There is a second outdoor space that we use for recess for middle school up on the 8th floor. The gym is a double height gym. That's a really large gym because we're a high school on the basement and then the part of the 1st floor that's not taken up by the library. So sadly, you can see on the icon touring now, there was a time when middle school student, 5th graders were in motion around the building, and we were talking to you in the gymatorium. We hope to return to that by next year, but we're not able to do that right now. Where is Clinton? Clinton is super accessible by Union Square. Most students take the train. Almost every train comes into Union Square, or the ones a little bit further west off Union Square, EF, the 123. The day starts at 8:10. The building opens at 7:30. I open the building at 7:30, and there are certainly plenty of students who want to come in and get breakfast at that time. And then a nice feature most of the time is that instead of just a regular bell, we have students pick songs between the next class that play for 2 minutes. Normal day. So for middle school, and I will show you a visual in the next slide of what that looks like in case this is a little bit hard to imagine. You come in, you start the day with advisory. You start that 5 days a week. That's 8:10 to 8:50. That's a little bit shorter period. And you're with the same group of students, about half a class of students, and you're with the same advisor all the time. Students also take English, they take math, they take individuals and societies, which is what the IB calls social studies, or what you might have taken in social studies. They take Spanish, they take art or music, each for 1 semester or half of the year, and they take physical education. Lunch in 6th grade, there is not out lunch. Sometimes towards the end of the year, we have out lunch, but starting in 7th grade, right at the start of 7th grade, students can go out to lunch if they would like. Plenty of students stay in at the cafeteria, and then others go out to lunch. We have them swipe in and out the same way that they start the day in the trust but verify model, but we do have out lunch for students. Class periods are about 48 minutes. We try not to rush students around the building. especially since there are times when they're going from PE to the 6th floor. Bell schedule. So again, it opens at 7:30. After school runs 2:40 to 5:30, as Chris Jacoby, the middle school PE teacher, said on the video. And the periods run, students have 4 periods before lunch, they have lunch, and then they have 3 periods after. So the day is going from about 8:10 to 2:40. For high school, the day goes from peak 50, so at that second period, and then high schoolers have 1 period after middle school. So they're going to school till about 3:30. And 6th grade schedule. So this is the actual schedule of a 601 class. That's a ICT class. So you see sometimes 2 teachers are listed there. As I mentioned, they start the day with advisory in that 8:10 to 8:50. And then they have lunch after 1 shorter period of advisory and 3 content periods, lunch, and then 3 periods after that. They have Spanish. As I mentioned, they have Spanish twice a week. That's sort of an introduction to Spanish and Spanish culture. And then 7th grade, a little bit more Spanish, and more language acquisition. Language is something that's very important to the IB. Being an IB World School, that is something that we put a lot of energy into over the last few years. So when people say like, what does it matter that IB, or I don't really care about IB, I understand that as a student who's in 5th grade. 11th grade is a long ways off, but at the same time, building capacity for language and supporting language is something that's super important. It is only Spanish. It will only probably ever be Spanish, just because the demands of the foreign language are so intensive. So if French is something that's incredibly important to you and they must have it during the school day, Clinton would not be a great choice. Clinton student life. So again, having a close-knit and collaborative culture, especially since we did a bunch of expanding over the last 5 to 10 years, was super important. The ways that we do that are the one after school. I do encourage all 6th graders to get involved in a period once a week, twice a week of after school. You know, in District 2, oftentimes families are super scheduled out, but I do think making a little bit of time for students to engage in after school at Clinton, that's generally a little bit less academic, is something that's really important. Social emotional support is really important to me. Again, I don't want to wade too deeply into it, but just having a common framework and structure for thinking about how we support students through peer conflicts, through working with adults, through working with their own identity, is something that's been very valuable to the building. We do a lot of work with Yale and the ruler framework, if any of you are familiar with it, and then also something called CASTLE. Hiring, we've done a bunch of hiring, again, looking for adults who are kind and competent. Something that's really important to me is communication. So you will hear from me weekly. I call it the letter from Levin. I've been doing it for about 10 years. Just an update on what's happening in the building. But across the building, communication is consistent and very strong. Student council. So student council, we have a super robust upper grade student council, and they've done a lot of work to mentor the younger kids, which is great. And that's another piece when you think about like, what does it mean to be in a 6 through 12? We do think about how we connect students across the grades in ways that you might not encounter in just a standalone middle school. Again, sports, I'm a huge believer in sports. I swam all the way up through college. So I do everything I can to make sure that students are active and involved in sports. They're all run by Manhattan Youth. They do take advantage of our gym, and they are across all 3. So this is a smattering of after-school clubs that are available through Manhattan Youth. It's everything from a little bit more active stuff like the running, the gymnastics, to things that are a little bit more artistic, like Glee Club, graphic design, comic book art, and then of course a bunch of the sports. And part of that tends to be what Manhattan Youth can offer. And then also part of it tends to be like, hey, we aren't able to have our own chess group right now. So can we include this particular chess this trimester. And Manhattan Youth has been a great partner with us over the years. So again, why does it matter that we're 6 through 12 IB for all? Because we build a program over 7 years, that's really one of the main reasons. We know what it means to graduate students at the end of 12th grade, and we really work backwards from that. So it has greatly influenced our course progression. It's greatly influenced how we support. The concept is international mindedness, basically that idea about how you work and understand with people of different backgrounds, belief systems, different cultures, religions, races than you. And then again, that last point, we thoughtfully and intentionally consider how older students can mentor and support younger students. So we do have peer tutoring in the library that's supervised by Jerome Ellison, the assistant principal, where we match seniors and juniors working with younger kids. Tends to be oftentimes around math or writing, but it doesn't have to be. I mentioned that student council, mentoring, and there are other opportunities in the building where we really think about how older kids with adult support can support and mentor younger kids. I think it's really important to see strong models for the younger kids in terms of what we're asking and what we would like them to grow up to be. So in the IB, again, we are a New York City public school. Our goal is to graduate 100% of students with a what's called a Regents diploma. If you're not from New York, you have no idea what that is, it's no problem. Honestly, no one outside of New York cares about it, but Regents is just one of the requirements that New York State asks for. But the Regents is a relatively low bar to graduate from high school. So we do expect that 100% of students will graduate. But what we're really looking at is for them to be engaged in IB courses in 11th and 12th grade. And that's with a range of learners. And I think that's something that's always been very important to us and will always be very important to us because it's part of the DNA of Clinton, is how we support a range of students. So we do have ICT, we do have SETs, we do look at how we do intervention, we do look at how we do additional social emotional support. And that's something that's been always a part of Clinton. We were one of the first ICT programs in the city. A little bit about the IB, just quickly. Most of this may not mean very much to you, which is fine, or if you just want to sort of park it in the back of your mind until you have an older student in high school, that's fine. But the IB came out of Europe with really the idea about how you build a curriculum that people around the world can access. So it needs to be strong, it needs to be rigorous, but it also needs to be somewhat flexible. And that's what the IB has done for the last 50 years or so. It really values all of the, first of all, two things. One, it values the whole child, and that's something that's super important. And then two, it values all content areas. So I grew up in New York City. I went to a specialized high school, very strong academically, but my high school, and I think most high schools, allow you to really specialize. So I was more of a humanities guy. I did what I needed to do for math and science, but I really focused on social studies, US history, European history, literature, and so on and so forth. The IB does not allow you to pick and choose in that way and just sort of avoid what you're not so good at. And that's a piece that I think is extraordinarily important in the IB. That's something that's extraordinarily important to us as a school in terms of supporting kids, and something that we continue to value. I won't get into some of the other things about theory of knowledge, extended essay, and so on and so forth. It's a little bit too minutia, I think, if you have a 10 or 11-year-old at home. One thing that I do in terms of, why the IB, why does it matter? Why does the 6 through 12 matter? Is the IB does have 10 traits that they value across the world, ensuring that students are caring, they're balanced, they're courageous, they're communicators, they're principled, they're knowledgeable. We attach one IB trait to each month, and we look at how we can support that, oftentimes through advisory or my messages to students. We try to model that as the adults in the building, but I think having a common set of they're called in the world the IB learner traits, I think is something that's really important. Not to beat the dead horse too much, but in terms of the IB, it's this curricular framework. It's revised on a 5-year cycle, so it's not the same thing that students are studying year after year. It is a fantastic predictor of college success. Oftentimes, students find that college is relatively easy compared to the IB, just because in college you're taking 3 or 4 courses instead of 7 or 8. Again, thinking about a balanced, a thoughtful individual, that is something that is important to us in 6 and 7 and 8, and promoting international understanding and respect, as I mentioned, with international mindedness in 6 and 7 and 8. So even though you may not want to hear very much about the extended essay, I get that. You will be hearing a lot about international mindedness if you come to Clinton. Questions you had for us. So let me just cover some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time. And of course, you're welcome to leave the webinar at any time. Someone wanted to know, can you tell me a little bit about your visual arts curriculum for middle school? And do they have the option to take visual arts for 6, 7, 8? So it was a 4-parter. Is there a portfolio development? Sorry, 3-part. So 1, the visual arts curriculum. So in 6th grade, students are learning elements of art, foundational skills. They're working in different of those artistic mediums. In 7th and 8th, the art teacher follows a similar model, which is they look at an artist, they look at that artist in context of the art movement that they were working in. They look at that artist in terms of their art technique that they were really focused on. And then lastly, students, of course, have the opportunity to produce their own art, thinking about what elements they can incorporate from the movement, the artistic techniques, and so on that they've studied. That tends to be the model for 7th and 8th, really thinking about art in context. It also, towards the end of 8th grade, students have a little bit more opportunity to choose. So that's a piece. For art, the number of times a week, honestly, the schedule varies a little bit every year. Normally it's not less than 3. It has been as high as 5, but I think if you say I must have art every day, this probably wouldn't be the school for you, just because we tend to look at what's working and what's not and make adjustments. So I'm a big believer in sort of tinkering with the schedule every year. We do have a core commitment to art. Students do take art all 7 years that they're here. They have to take art in 11th and 12th grade. In the IB, right now it's IB film or IB visual arts. But so we do have a commitment to art, but I think in terms of just the number of periods, I wouldn't get too caught on that, just because I do tend to tweak it year to year in consultation with staff. Is there a portfolio development? No, there's not. We're really focused on Clinton as a 6 through 12. So we don't offer SHSAT, a prep class on premises. We certainly have plenty of students that go to specialized high schools. We don't offer LaGuardia portfolio. We certainly have students who go or to go to Frank McCourt. All that is great, but we're really focused on preparing students for our high school program. Next question, is the school appropriate for bright kids who care about school but are not necessarily extremely driven or overachievers? Absolutely. I think it's full of kids who really are bright, are curious, are creative. School's not easy. It's not easy for anyone. It's not easy for a lot of kids. It certainly takes a lot of work. It certainly takes a lot of commitment. The other piece is, over the course of the 7 years, I see a lot of ups and downs. A student can start not that enthusiastic about school and get more enthusiastic. A student can be enthusiastic and then go through a period where they're a little bit less enthusiastic. And what we try to do is support them through all those times. Part of that may mean the club, part of that may mean the advisory, part of that may be just talking a little bit about what is a student's passion. So yes, but there are a range of learners at Clinton. There are certainly a lot of students who are overachievers, who are really strong academically, but I think we have a deep commitment to all learners. Will you be holding live tours? No. When is the second tour? I believe it's listed on the same sheet. We are going to do a little bit more in terms of our support for students with IEPs with formal support. And can a student apply in 6th grade? All applications for transfers between the district or during the school year are handled by the Office of Enrollment or the Family Welcome Center. So please contact them and they can let you know any next steps there. Music and theater, and I know I talked a little bit about visual arts, but not too much about music. So just as intense as the visual arts program is the music program. So students are taking music for one semester. That starts off same thing, general music. They do get to instrumental music. They do perform. And then in terms of thinking a little bit about how we support that in the other times of the years, that can be band, that can be involvement in theater. We do have a really robust theater program and musical, both on a middle school and a high school level, that have gone on for a number of years. Someone wanted to know about the nature, value, purpose of the IB program. Hopefully that I've said enough about it. But I'm a huge believer in the IB. Again, I grew up in New York. I went through the AP program. I think the IB is far superior to it for a number of reasons. If you catch me outside at Arrival, I would be happy to say on and on about it. And then someone asked for a visual on the 6th grade schedule, so I did go ahead and put that back in. I hope this has been helpful. If you have a question that I wasn't able to answer on the webinar, please submit it through the Google form that's linked. And I promise to publish out a FAQ with questions as they come up, and thinking a little bit about finding the right fit for your child. Two biggest things I hope that you come away from this with are Clinton is a 6 through 12. It is an IB for all school that's really thinking a lot about how we support students over a course of a 7-year. And then I think the last piece is I think we have a really clear belief in terms of what school's about, how we can support students, and frankly, how we can help students have a ton of success. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'm going to stop the webinar.